Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends where you are in the world. Welcome to the third day of webinars marking the National Grief Awareness Week that we are marking at St. Elizabeth Hospice. Just a reminder that this webinar is recorded and it will be available probably next week on the St. Elizabeth Hospice channels and website. You will receive an email probably with that. And yeah, so we work on today. I'm very excited to have today Gaynor and Eleanor, which are part of the spiritual care team at St. Elizabeth Hospice. So Eleanor is the spiritual care worker in East Suffolk, and Gaynor is in Grey Yarmouth and Waveney. So I'm gonna just give them, pass them the, how do you say when you pass them? What am I passing you? You're taking over.
The baton or the microphone?
Yeah, a baton. I'm passing you the baton. And yes, so they're gonna have a conversation about rituals and symbols in spiritual care. If you have any questions, you could write on the chat, and there will be time at the end, about 10-15 minutes at the end, for questions and answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think firstly, good afternoon, everyone. And we're going to introduce ourselves. So as SP said, I'm Gaynor, spiritual care worker for Great Yarmouth and Waveney. So I work with the hospice for 2 days a week. And I've been working in spiritual care for 5 years. My other hat is that I'm an ordained minister in the Church of England. I'm a self-supporting minister. So that's what I do the rest of my time in the week. So I'll hand you over to Eleanor.
So hi, I am Eleanor and I'm a spiritual care worker and I work in Ipswich and East Suffolk. I'm 3 days a week here, and like Gaynor, I've been doing hospital chaplaincy and end-of-life care for about 5 years. Yeah, so holding people's hands and feeling very privileged to do that. And my passion to do that came out from some own personal experiences. So that inspired me to want to support people and their spiritual journeys during health issues or death. So Gaynor, should we start with our... we both sort of agreed, didn't we, that we might need to sort of define...
I think we need to start off by...
define spirituality,
spiritual
maybe?
care. So yeah, I think we need to talk about that really, because it's difficult to actually describe what spiritual care actually is. So for me, I suppose it's journeying alongside people when they're at a time of trauma or suffering. And it's facilitating exploration of values and beliefs. It's really about what matters most to people. So we hold space and we facilitate those conversations and that reflection. It may have something to do with religion or faith, or it may not. It could be things to do with family, creation. It's really about what matters most to people. Do you want to add anything to that, Eleanor?
Yeah, so I suppose I often say to people, it's about purpose and meaning. Like, what brings you purpose and meaning? And that can be anything. And as Gaynor says, it can be on the religious spectrum, but the religious spectrum is vast as it is, isn't it? It's huge. Or it could be that family is important, fresh air is important, water's important, certain music's important. And whatever those things are as well might change during the course of someone's life, but also during the course of someone's illness and the process of grief. So yeah, we create and we hold that space for people to let us know what those things are, and also explore what they might be or how they might change.
So it's a lot of listening. We do a lot of listening, and we allow the unpacking and telling and and retelling of stories, and facilitate that exploration with the patient or carer, family member or colleague. And that's what we do. And we need to try and set that in the context of grief and of symbols and rituals in grief for you. So we thought we'd talk about the grieving process really to start with, and when that might start.
Oh, yeah, and we agreed that it's, as we all say in I think in end of life care, it's different for everybody. Everything's different for everybody, isn't it? But it's variable and individual. But the process hopefully is able to start before death. That's what we were saying. It's very important. It doesn't always, but hopefully we are able to walk alongside people, hearing their stories, unpacking their stories, sharing their stories in a process before, well, when they might be living with illness in the privileged places that we are in our hospice work. But there are often untimely and traumatic experiences as well, aren't there?
And sometimes diagnoses can overtake people. And certainly what you find is that the nature of the death, if it is untimely or particularly traumatic, then the grieving process can be particularly difficult. If the grieving process, both for the person who is dying and for the family around them, can start at an earlier time, then that can help. That can help moving on. It can help coming to terms with things. It can help in terms of actually evaluating those things that are really important to the person and the legacy that they may want to leave. So it's very variable. It's as variable as each and every one of us actually is. Grief, like our life journeys, and grief is a journey. Life at the end of life is a journey, is as individual as each person, and that's why we do an awful lot of listening to actually find out where they are on that journey. And we were going to sorry, Eleanor, I interrupted. Okay. It's difficult.
I was going to say that the grieving process has started, hasn't it? So someone might have had a diagnosis. They've got to accept that diagnosis first. The individual receiving that diagnosis, but also those around them too. And so the rituals or the symbols that might start being used in that process helps them process emotions. It might create a bond, didn't we say, with the deceased? And again, it's giving them some control in a time that lots of people feel out of control. The illness means that they've lost capacity of things, or they're not in control of this part of the journey. So Gaynor and I and other spiritual care workers create a space for us to just sort of hold that time, don't we, and say, what's important? What are the symbols and rituals that might help us get through that now? And so, yeah, maybe we should unpack, Gaynor, what's a symbol and what's a ritual? Do we want to go there yet, or?
Yeah, can do. We had a big chat about this earlier. What we think symbolism, what we think a ritual is, and we sort of came to the conclusion, I think, that rituals are a process, that they are something that we do that is a process in itself. So it could be a funeral, it could be a memorial service, it could be ritualistic prayer, it could be the washing of a body, it could be grave visiting. It's completely personal, and Eleanor was talking about share your ritual, Eleanor, that you talked to me about earlier.
We were talking about how some rituals might start before someone's even died. So I have a little prop here about my personal experiences, if that's okay. So I was very lucky that I was able to spend some time with my grandfather in the time before he died, and we lived with each other and whatever. So we used to eat breakfast with each other every single morning. And just before he died, I have a photograph of him. It's a long time ago. Look how young I am. You know, there's me and my granddad. And this is a picture that we had taken. I had pictures with me and my gran and some family, so that we had some pictures of him before he just before he died. And my ritual was, before he died, we'd have breakfast together. We had Weetabix with just boiling hot water from rationing times. You didn't have milk or anything. And when he died, this picture would sit on my breakfast table, and I would still have breakfast with my granddad. And that ritual continued, I can tell you, quite a few years until I got married. But now this picture is a symbol that hangs on a wall in our house. Yeah, so that was it. So that was a ritual that I did. It's not a religious ritual, but it's a process that I needed to continue doing. And it's a ritual that started before he died, but continued to keep him alive for me afterwards.
So these rituals, whatever they might be, it's something about keeping the bond with the person, keeping that connection. But somehow it enables this sort of link with the past, but the building of a future too, keeping a space between the past and the present. And then we talked about a symbol. So Ellen, you mentioned that it's now become a symbol. It's now hanging on the wall. So symbols we tend to think more of as an object, maybe a candle, maybe the picture, maybe handprints, maybe memory boxes, something, a physical symbol. It could be a faith symbol. It could be planting a tree. It could be a book of remembrance. There is something in our human psyche that actually making a mark, putting something down in itself actually facilitates that grief process. It's a set, it could be, there's a sense of control maybe, but it does reduce anxiety. We often see with patients that actually holding something, holding a stone, holding a cross, or a holding heart, gives a sense of comfort, but also this sense of control and a reduction in anxiety. So that's tried to sort of put in place perhaps a difference between rituals and symbols. But why do we feel they are so important? Why are rituals? Yeah, sorry.
So their importance for part of the grieving process, and we've heard from a few people in our lovely webinars this week about the ritual or symbolic form when we're grieving something. So yesterday was a lovely someone shared that they made an altar during a time of baby loss, and that process, the ritual of making the altar, but then also the symbol of that altar, was very powerful for this person in their grieving process. And I suppose the people we support, Gaynor, we often have to talk about or hold the space of what is the ritual going to look like, what important rituals are there as we near end of life, the actual death process, and after that, don't we? So it could be that there are certain religious beliefs like washing the body, being buried 24 hours later, not being cremated, but needing to be buried, having certain prayers read, having our last rites. There's lots of religious things that happen and people stick to them, don't they, those religious symbols. But then there can be times where people actually have never spoken about it, have they? And they don't know when to talk about it, or should they bring it up? And we talked, didn't we, Gaynor, about how sometimes in our roles we create the space for that conversation to happen, and that
I think I'm more frozen.
You've come back, I think. That people will want different things, and actually sometimes we are in a space where there is anger, frustration, all over which ritual and symbol is appropriate for that person, and who is the ritual and symbol for, because both the person is grieving their life, but also there will be grief of death. Did you want to talk about any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's touch on that. There's 2 points really, isn't there? Firstly, what do we actually find when we go into a room? where there is where grief is actually taking place. And sometimes we go into spaces where, and we never know what we're going to find when we go in, but sometimes people are actually treading on eggshells. They're frightened to actually talk about what the person who is dying actually wants in terms of a funeral, or what they want to happen afterwards, or sometimes it can be what the family want. Sometimes we facilitate those conversations, sometimes simply by being present. And we can help those conversations go along. And sometimes also there is, as Eleanor said, there is conflict, there is anger, there can be all sorts of issues going on of guilt and things. And then if the person who is dying actually doesn't actually say or leave any indication of what they might want to happen, then there can be conflict between the people who are standing around, their carers, and competing conflicts sometimes. And that can be a difficult conversation for us to have. Again, it's a lot of listening and facilitating, but we help in those conversations and help to actually sort of get things out in the open sometimes by those conversations taking place. And the other thing is this whole process of what it's about. This process is to remember, to grieve, to validate, fulfill wishes. It gives meaning, structure, psychological support. And there's a difference often between the sort of public mourning and private grief, I feel, and how those things are actually sort of marked. And we see it particularly at this time of year. I think you have, is it Light for Life in Ipswich?
We do.
Have, yeah. And we've got a service in Beccles this Saturday. I've got the privilege of reading it. It's sort of coming together where people find mutual support from other people by coming back to remember. They provide a sort of formal space and a language for people to express themselves and to come back. New ways of connecting, maybe, but also reinforcing social bonds and a sense of unity, which can be cultural, and reinforces that history. And the group setting sort of reduces tension, but we talked about this acceptance of vulnerability and fosters trust. So really, really important things around rituals.
Yeah, because we have so it was Interfaith Week a few weeks ago, wasn't it? And I went to visit a mosque, 2 mosques in Ipswich. I'm just remembering this now. Different cultures have different things that are important, but also that help the grieving process. So like being together in community, washing a body, or being together in community. Yesterday we heard of the Irish tradition of keening, where people go into the woods and they wail. I mean, I watched the webinar from yesterday. It was very insightful. But that group cohesion of grieving together and that release of pain, suffering, emotion, lack of control is quite powerful. And I think we've gone from a culture where, I say 100 years ago, we probably all had black bands on our arms and we wore black, and it was very public that we were grieving. But nowadays it's become very much more private, hasn't it? So these spaces where Light Up a Life or All Souls Day, when we read names, you also mentioned, I think before it, Remembrance Day, we stand on Remembrance Day and we talk, we read the names of these people from our villages or towns who died, and we stand there as a ritual, isn't it? But it's a symbol of, we will remember you. It sort of brings everybody together in community, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much so. So there's something about a structured set of actions or words, which gives a sense of comfort and a drawing together. Yeah, very, very much so.
It is really important, those actions. So I can reflect with you on sometimes having those words, whether it be a poem or a rosary, to say your Hail Mary or your Our Father. There are so many times when I'm in a space with someone and they're not spiritual, not religious, but the comfort of can you say the Lord's Prayer for me, or can you read that poem Footsteps for me, or that sometimes the words, we don't have the words, do we, Gaynor? But something else of that liturgy or poetry gives people a permission to have those words of grief, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Very, very much so. And we respond, don't we, we respond sometimes quite quickly, and we have to do it sometimes quite quickly to the needs of that individual or the family at the time. So I was talking to Eleanor about the last baby death that I dealt with at the hospital I worked with previously. The baby's death was actually quite expected because she had been thriving. So she'd been born prematurely, but she was expected to live, and then took a turn for the worse and deteriorated quite rapidly. So I was called up to the ward, and Dad just could not face seeing the baby the way that she was. Mum was with nurses and holding on to the baby, and the paediatricians had made the decision with the family to actually turn off life support. She was moving to another room. Mum very much wanted to put together memories of her, memories of the things that she was wearing, of her clothes, of her little lock of her hair. Dad still was very, very emotional. But what we did was they talked about a name. They wanted some sort of ceremony which was not religious, but they wanted to mark that event. So I put together a little booklet very quickly with the help of an administrator, and we played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and there was a little sort of non-religious liturgy that we went through. Dad very much wanted a copy of the little service sheet to treasure, to hang on to, but actually still couldn't come into the room. But that was totally driven by what was right for that family at that time, and the box was going to be very, very important with these situations. And you develop something, what's right for that person, that family at that time, which enables them in some way to put a mark, to remember, to grieve. It facilitates grieving. Where there is an untimely death, it is very, very difficult, but this process is the same, with a lot more listening.
Yeah.
Did we want to talk about personal reflections or anything that sticks out for you?
That is what I just would say. I just feel very privileged in our work that we are able to enter this space and we hold a space. And as you say, it's a lot of listening. I mean, it's holding a space for people to navigate their story and what the symbols or rituals might be, and they don't know that yet, and we might hold it for them. So I suppose an example might be, talking to someone and saying, is there anyone you need to talk to? Or is there anyone you want to say to anybody? Do I need to get you some cards, some Christmas cards, some birthday cards? You might be able to give them to them yourself, but then we've written them together, or we have little books for people to write their favorite recipes for their grandchildren down or something. But it's just, everybody's ritual or symbol will be different. There may be commonplace ones like stones placed on graves to show that you're thinking of someone. That's a Jewish tradition. But I think in general, I think we all have our own routines in our own lives, like how we brush our teeth, or what time we go to bed, and what music we listen to. And I think in grief and death, it would be the same. It's individual to everybody. But the one key thing I'd say, and I think you'd agree, Gaynor, is being able to start that process before death, and even better before the emotion kicks in. Like, I'm definitely not a person you want to have at a dinner party, because I might sort of say, have you thought about how you might want to think about your funeral? Or but yeah, those rituals and symbols can really give people something to cling on to as they grow through the grief, as they walk through that next journey. Yeah. And one other question I would ask to all of us in this would be, and we talked about this very quickly, I'm just conscious of time, is that how, as some of us being healthcare professionals that walk alongside these people on a regular basis, how do we hold that space? How do we create symbols or rituals for us? Because although these might not be our loved ones, they are people who have allowed us into their world at a time. And how do we process that? And Gaynor and I have our own thoughts of how we do that, whether that's going for a walk. My faith holds me strong for me to do my job. But in order for my faith to stay strong, I have certain rituals that I do for me. And I'm sure Gaynor does for her. So the thing I would just say to all of us as we navigate this process and we continue to keep ourselves refueled to be able to keep doing that is, what rituals are important to you and what symbols are important to you, so we can continue to help other people have that. Gaynor, do you have any you want to share?
Yeah, I think you're right. What we do is incredibly privileged. It's very emotionally and psychologically draining, and it is for all hospice staff. My own sort of rhythms that I have is that, again, it's faith for me, that my faith actually enables me to facilitate others, which is why I love that passage for Corinthians, the God of all mercy, who actually looks after us, but enables us to actually share his love with others. So that is my faith that keeps me strong. And I say morning prayer in the morning, and I take time out to actually do the job. So I think it is incredibly important for all of us involved in hospice work that we have certain rhythms of life, really, that support us as we support others, and we have that great privilege to do so. Where they're missing, where we don't have them, is where things you just don't cope as well. And if I look back to my own experiences of COVID, when I lost two close relatives, one through COVID, one not through COVID, but that time when you couldn't see people, when you couldn't say your goodbyes. I did my uncle's funeral eventually, when I could actually do the funeral, and only so many people were actually allowed in, other people were outside, and then I couldn't actually bury his ashes for months and months afterwards. He was sitting on a shelf somewhere, and lots of people were in that same position, and that produces a trauma of its own. So it is very, very important that we have our own sort of ritual to help us get through the day, as well as to facilitate other people. So I think we're actually bang on 1 o'clock. How about that? Do we have any? Is there anything more you want to say, Eleanor? Or should I ask questions?
No, I just would be really intrigued. Obviously, we don't always know who the people who are tuning in, as it were, but I'm sure there's a lot of professionals out there. And so I would wonder if any of you wanted to share with us your experience of rituals and symbols and how they can aid the grieving process.
So we open
Hello.
it to the audience, yeah?
Yeah.
Eleanor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the audience want to?
Yeah, you could just unmute yourself or and put
Can
your
we see
camera.
gallery mode again? Is that
Yeah.
Oh, do we have any?
oh, Joshua?
Someone, Joshua. Yeah, Joshua is.
Oh, hi. I don't know if this is kind of part of a ritual, but in terms of the young people that I work with as a school chaplain, one of them has, granddad has just recently died, and she was talking about setting up a place for him on the table for Christmas dinner. So still making a name label for him and putting a glass out. And she was just telling me about this, and I thought that's such a lovely thing, having lost him so close to Christmas and still wanting to incorporate Grandad into that family routine at such a special time. I thought was a really lovely thing for her to talk about.
Well, thank you, Joshua. It made me a bit tearful inside, yeah, because my granddad sits in many a place. He's good. I can't see him now. Anyone else? Joan, can we see you? Oh, hang on. We don't have to, but you know, it's quite nice when we get to see you.
Hi. Can I just not have the pictures? I feel like I'm
Yeah,
acting.
you can just, sorry,
No, it's okay. I just I recently lost my mom. Last May, and with rituals, I think, because I spent my birthday in October, that was the first time that my mama was not with me. And I think one of the rituals which I kind of want to do with Christmas is to have her usual recipes for Christmas. So for dessert on my birthday, I kind of made one of the desserts that people love about, eating about the dessert she makes. So I made that on my birthday. For this Christmas, I usually would do something else, but like experiment on something else. But for this year, I said to my family, can we just have something that, mom would usually make for Christmas? It's in a way, it's a ritual that big. It's to remember her by. I'm sorry.
No, thank you for sharing that. It's
Yeah, no, please don't apologise, Joan. And it's these times, isn't it? Particularly at Christmas, at birthdays, when when things become very yes, when things become very, very poignant. And particularly the first Christmas after a death or the first birthday. But those rituals, like, using the recipes that your mom used, the things that she loved, helps that remembering. And I think as time goes on, you will continue to do them. It becomes less raw after a while, but you will continue to, they've become treasured then memories. And what you are doing is still sharing that space with your mum in that time, but also facilitating your presence now with her memory. That's a very lovely thing to do. Both lovely reflections.
Paula, I think it has handed.
there we go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hello
Yes.
there. Hi. It's nice to see you, and thank you for these. They've been wonderful webinars. Just a small point, really. I work I'm an interfaith minister, and I work at St. Francis Hospice and also work at Goodmay Psychiatric Hospital. And it was just something that somebody said recently that I thought I would share, which is about checking in to see if these rituals that we have really serve the purpose that we wanted them to, especially around Christmas time. Because sometimes the rituals that we had that might have involved a loved one or would have been done with a partner, something can feel really quite sore for people. And I think sometimes it's important to check in and have a bit of a review and say, does this ritual actually bring you more comfort than suffering? Because the attachment to the ritual can, I feel, sometimes maybe be an honouring an obligation. They'd feel guilty if they didn't, when actually it's okay to change it or to drop it or to create something new. Yeah. So I think that's I mean, it goes for all of us, doesn't it? You know,
it does. I think that's a really good
loss.
point. It's a really good point, Paula. And people almost need that permission to say, actually, I don't need to do this anymore. It's okay not to do this. Every Christmas Day, my mum, who is still with us, wanted to visit her parents' grave, and she did it every Christmas Day. And when we moved, it sort of gave her permission not to do that. But I had to take her back for one last time, and she said, "I know this is the last time." Because where they're buried is a long time away. But I think she actually needed that geographical space to actually give her that permission that it's okay not to go back or to do this.
I think that the skill is in recognizing, is the ritual or the tradition benefiting her? Like, was she getting something from going there? Did she feel that it fulfilled something in her that needed to be fulfilled? Or was it an obligation and caused her suffering?
It can be, and the same can be said with symbols as well, can't it? So if you suddenly lose a symbol or it breaks or so I literally have here so many stones, right? So I have this little bag of stones, but I also used to have a very small, really soft, it wasn't soft when I first got it, but it was a stone that sat in my pocket for 15 years, and I rubbed it to remember someone by. And so this stone got smaller and smaller and shinier and shinier. And I lost it one day, couldn't find it. But it was okay, but it could have not been okay. Do you see what I mean? Those things that if we add so much attachment, or you know, the one day that you forget to say, have breakfast with Grandad on the kitchen table, you know, oh, is it okay? But no, so thank you, Paula. That is really, really valuable reminder that we end up doing these rituals, don't we? Because sometimes we feel we have to. Well, it's the same with grief, though, isn't it? You know, quite often I'm supposed to be crying, but I can't cry, or I'm supposed to be sad, but are you? It's that huge vastness of grief. There's no right and wrong.
And sometimes, particularly about the crying bit, I mean, I was with a family recently where one of them actually said there are no tears, and they actually needed to pay. They had watched their loved one suffer for a long time. They'd actually done the grieving all the way through. It was okay to not have any tears, because each individual is different. They're different. And even if they're meeting the same circumstance, the people around the bed could be different. It's okay not to cry sometimes. It's fine. But sometimes people do need that validation, you know, they, as Paula said, they need the sort of to be able to ask themselves. But it's a difficult time to ask that. The time has to be right, doesn't it? Am I doing this out of obligation, or do I need this? Yeah, very good point.
Thank you, Paula. I'm gonna just take the spotlight off. We've got just 5 minutes left, so I don't know if Eleanor or Gaynor, you want to do a closing. I can't see any hands up, so I'm guessing there is no more questions at the moment or sharing. So I don't know if it's you would like to do an individual closing before we finish.
I think we've said quite a lot. The only thing I'd just say is thank you, really. We didn't talk about music, whether that was because we didn't have time, but you know, music is a powerful part of But thank you for listening. I'm sure that you can all teach us a lot too. So please do get in contact if you want to continue talking or want to share, or because I know that Gaynor and I both would love to learn more about this too.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. For those people who are hospice staff, we really wanted to use this opportunity as well to say who we are and a bit more about what we do. And that we are available not just to patients and carers, but to colleagues as well. And that chats with us are confidential, unless a safeguarding issue arrives. But yes, but thank you all very much for coming and thank you for your contributions. Perhaps think about how you actually deal with the subject matter that we actually deal with, that we deal with people who are very sick and people who are very emotional, very traumatized a lot of the time, and what sort of ritual symbols actually help you actually process what we deal with the subject matter, what we deal with in a working day. Because it's absolutely wonderful work that is done from everyone who works in the hospice. And as Eleanor said, it is a great privilege to be journeying alongside people. But thank you.
Well, I would like to say thank you to you two, to Gaynor, Eleanor, for this very powerful reflection around rituals and symbols in our work in the hospice. You make me think of I think it was Eleanor that was sharing about when a ritual become a symbol, and a really powerful thought about that, when rituals come as symbols, and then the rituals that we do, or the symbols that we have as a professionals that help us on our day-to-day. Yeah, I didn't think about that. When we think about rituals or symbols, we think always in the grieving process, but actually what rituals or what symbols do we have in our day-to-day as a healthcare professionals that could help us in this profound work that we do, that is very intense and very, very powerful. So thank you for bringing that light into that awareness. So thank you both. And we have one last webinar tomorrow. So inviting the people that would like to join us tomorrow. We will closing this webinar series tomorrow with Katie and myself. We are both counselors of the emotional wellbeing team from St. Elizabeth Hospice. So I hope to see some of you tomorrow. And thank you very much that came today. Thank you, Gaynor. Thank you, Eleanor. It's been very, very powerful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.